I think it's about time we do some circle quilt blocks. We are going to do this the easiest possible way ever. I'm going to show you some very simple beginner level ways to make circle quilt blocks, and before we're done I'll go back and make one the traditional way, but I'll mix in some really cool tricks that will help you make this easy peasy. Today's the day we face our fears. Let's go! Why exactly is it so daunting to sew circle quilt blocks? Well, for one thing, because you have two pieces and they're pointing in completely different ways. The second being, sewing in a circular pattern isn't really what we're used to doing. So how do we do this and make it easy? For our first circle quilt block version, we need two different fabrics, one 6-inch square and a 5-inch square. We make a circle using a compass or a pre-made template or a ruler if you have one, or even a lid or something round you have lying around. For all the templates I'll be using today, you can check out my blog and I will leave the link in the description for you. You just go there, find the templates, and they're ready to print and they're ready to use. I also need some thermal adhesive to add to our circle fabric. So let me just press it in place. Next step is we add our circle to the center of our block using our iron. And now we just sew around our circle to make sure it will never move again. Now you can use a regular stitch, a zigzag stitch, or even an applique stitch, your call. You can even sew it by hand if you want, and that way you will get a hidden stitch, which is much more subtle. Now I like this version, it's really simple, but if instead of using just a solid fabric block, you used a 4-patch for the circle and the square, that would look so awesome. So give it a try. And that's it guys, we are done. Our first circle block in under 5 minutes. If you didn't love our first version because of the raw edges, I've got you covered. So let's go ahead and get two more fabrics, a 6-inch square and a 5-inch square, and draw a circle with our template. Now we get another 5-inch square in the cheapest fabric you own, and for me that's this curtain you've seen me use a couple of times. We sew all around our circle, right sides together. And now we turn it inside out just like so. Let's press this perfect circle. And now let's add it to our bigger square and sew. This is looking cute and you could leave it as is, but I don't like this bulk we've got going on here, so I'm going to cut the two back layers like so. And here we have it, a perfect circle quilt block, easy peasy. And how quick was that, guys? Isn't this easy? Now let me guess, you prefer a circle quilt block without any noticeable stitching, right? Boy, you're picky. Just kidding, I've got you covered. Let's get our templates. I have my circle template right here, and this one is a bit larger than the one I've been using because I need a seam allowance. And I also have two other templates, one for a 6-inch quilt block without a seam allowance and another one with a seam allowance. So now let's go ahead and cut our fabrics. We want to cut the circle with the seam allowance. Then we go back and cut our square also with the seam allowance, but we will want to mark where that seam allowance ends so we can keep track. Next step is making small cuts on the seam allowance of the 4-inch square. Let me get my trusted temporary glue pen right here, and we're going to glue the seam allowance to the inside of the block like so. Now we add the circle fabric from the back. If you want to do this the easy way, you'll just glue the circle onto the block and sew all around and be done. But if you don't want any stitching sewing, you will need to glue or pin the circle to the seam allowance and then sew it very carefully. And that's it. Perfect circle quilt block, not a stitch in sight. There is another way to make circle quilt blocks that doesn't require as much precision, which are Wonky circle quilt blocks. Now this is, I would say, the quickest, easiest way to make circle quilt blocks. Let me show you. We are taking our rotary cutter. Yes, you can cut circles with rotary cutter, just not perfect ones. And we're just going to make two cuts, a small circle and a strip above that circle. We are doing it to all 4 fabrics at once because the purpose here is to get perfect, equal cuts. I did pick some very awkward fabrics. I have been getting more and more used to working with black. Because for me, you know, black isn't really a quilty color, but is it just me? Do you use black for your quilts, or do you prefer the more colorful fabrics? Let me know in a comment, okay? Look at this awesome puzzle. All we need to do is sew them together, and it doesn't really matter if they match or not. This is just how it will look, and it will look absolutely awesome. So far, we've been doing full circles, but you can do all of these in quarters. Personally, like I said, I find that if you use the 4-patch method for all the 3, they will look absolutely stunning. But you know what? For the traditional version we're doing next, I am definitely going to be using our quarters. I need 2 templates for this, and again, all of these will be available on the blog, okay? I make 1 post for each video, so just find this one and you've got it all on there. I need a quarter with the seam allowance and a quarter circle with the seam allowance as well. This means they won't match exactly because the seam allowances are meant to overlap. It really helps to have some markers to make sure you're on the right track. So I am marking the middle, a quarter of the way, and 3/4 of the way. Now, things you need to know before we do this. First, the larger the curve, the easier it will be to sew. Second, you always want to start with your needle down. This next step is a total personal preference, okay? You can pin this little corner to your heart's content, covering every single inch of it to make sure all you need to do is sew, or you can put it in place as you move along, which for me works so much better because it just gives me full control. Just be careful not to pull on the fabric too much and twist it. With the pins, I cannot see a thing. This way, I can see every little bit of it. I only planned to make one of the corners because I wasn't really sure if I would be able to make all 4 match, and these do need to match, okay? These aren't wonky. These need to match perfectly. And you know what? I'm feeling confident, so I'm just going to go ahead and make all the other corners and make a beautiful traditional circle quilt block the easy way. Essentially, we are going to repeat all we've done with this one corner. We're going to gather both pieces, the circle and the corner. I'm just going to sew as I go, and I'm going to do that 3 times more. Now that we have all these pieces, they're looking pretty perfect. We need to sew them all together, and this part we need to watch out, okay? We need to make sure that our seams nest, but also that our seams match. First we sew 2 corners at a time, and then we sew both halves together. How cute is that? And this was the traditional way. We did not use anything else. We just did it a little bit easier. So tell me, are you ready to make some circle quilt blocks? Let me know. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.